Before I knew I was a writer, I knew that I loved hearing stories and telling stories. I was fortunate that my mother was a stay-at-home mom, and not to categorize her as, well, that's who the be-all and end-all of who she was. My mom was a career woman before she decided and made that decision to stay home with me and then my two younger siblings. And what she would do is she would always bring story into our lives. As simple as taking us to our public library and giving me the run of the library, introducing me to the librarians, and making sure that if I did want to read something even above my reading level, that she'd find a way for me to access it. So if it was, now we have Audible and books on MP3, but at that time it would have been a book on an album, or it would have been a comedy, and she would make sure that it was age appropriate, but she would allow me to borrow comedy albums and all those kinds of things that would pour into me. And so I knew from an early age that I love stories, I love to retell those stories. The earliest memory I have of really knowing that, okay, I'm a writer, probably would have been in middle school, and having a team assignment to come up with a story with a partner and write that story out. And that was the first instance I remember, okay, I think I'm a writer. Probably what influenced that, maybe a couple years before, as early as I think the 5th or 6th grade in grade school, was playing role-playing games with a good friend of mine. We'd play Dungeons and Dragons, and we lived far apart, so we'd play it over the phone. And it was, if any of you remember, you'd have to be a little bit older to remember party line telephone, where you don't own your own landline, but several people in your community share it. And those role-playing games would take a long time, and we'd be on for several hours, and I'd have to be polite sometimes and say, hey, I'm still using the phone. And my mom would figure out that I was telling people not to come on the party line, and of course that didn't last long, and I'd have to excuse and pause the game in order for somebody to use the telephone. But probably high school was the first time then I really realized, okay, I'm a writer. I wrote a story. I fictionalized a hurt that I'd been carrying. Something happened between my younger sister and I fictionalized it, and I realized that I could take something that I experienced, change it, but not change the feeling and emotion, but just change it to make private our experience. But then people in my class, and I think I might have been a freshman in high school, people in my class were affected by it, and they felt the emotion of it, and I realized, hey, I'm pretty good at this. This is something that I can do.